Greetings and felicitations. I'm Jeff Higdon, and welcome to the second episode of STARFLEET at Large. This program is designed to shine a spotlight on all the members, regions, chapters, and give us a chance to learn more about them. Top of the news is the upcoming virtual IC 2021 to be held on Saturday, August 7th. In the announcement that was sent out, registration is through Eventbrite and requires only your name as listed in the database, the SEC number you currently have, the valid email address as well. If you don't have an Eventbrite account, it will help you to set one up. For the event itself, you will actually log into Eventbrite. On the registration page is all the info you need to figure out what time it starts where you are. We also plan to record it for you so you can view it at a more convenient time. This event is free to all current STARFLEET members. We will have a donation link if you wish to donate to the Scholarship Fund or just STARFLEET in general, but you don't have to. Programming tentatively includes EC reports, RC greetings, Fleet Annual Awards, Academy Annual Awards, discussion panels, the STARFLEET Marine Corps International Muster, which is scheduled for 4 p.m., chapter roll call, final mission, and much, much more. We hope to see you at the virtual IC 2021 on August 7th. Now, around the fleet, we find that the USS Antares held an election for CO, and Leah Morgan was elected. She appointed Mary Detmeyer as her XO. USS Blackhawk has 2 new crew members, Diana and Madison Herring, and the Russell Camp III has been assisting homeless veterans to obtain VA access. Our first guest is a member of STARFLEET, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Captain Lourdes Bond, the Chief Engineer on board the USS Avenger. Welcome to STARFLEET at Large, Lourdes.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I'm 42. My star sign is Gemini. No. I am, I'm in my 40s. I'm a mom of 2 toddlers. I live in Indiana in Region 1, and I've been a member of STARFLEET on and off since, I think at least the late 90s.
What about Star Trek made you a fan?
You know, the first time I caught the original series and Next Gen sitting in my mom's room when I was probably somewhere between 11 or 13, I was hooked. I loved the idea of a world in which people got along. No matter if the people looked like people or if they looked like plants or if they looked like rocks, it didn't matter. People were people, and that's really exciting, and it catches you from the get-go. And then, of course, there's the technology that comes from it. And I think a lot of people in the sciences field get hooked in that area. And now, thanks to that, we have wonderful things like pads and cell phones and all sorts of wonderful stuff. So it's a repeating loop, and I love the fact that that actually happens.
So did I. So I'd have to agree with you there. How did you find STARFLEET? Let me ask you that.
I actually had a group of people when I was living in New Jersey at the time, and we were looking to become part of a larger organization. And so it just kind of worked out that way. And then when I was in high school, and then I went to college. And when I went to college, I was looking for friends more in my area, and the Avenger happened to be exactly where I was going to college in the North Brunswick area. So I decided to go down there for a meeting. And so I went there, and at first I'm like, okay, this is pretty fun, but then it ended and we had to go. And this was at a bowling lanes at the time. So everybody said their goodbyes, got up, started to walk out the door, and this station wagon pulls up with my friend Carlos in it and his wife Heidi, and Heidi's like, "You get in." And I'm like, "Okay." And we went to Subway that night, and I made about 60 friends that evening,
Wow.
and they're lifelong ones.
Well, that's the only way to go.
It's the best way to go.
Yes, it is. Now, I understand you're working on your own novel, and you
Yes.
actively participate in fiction writing with the chapter.
Well, yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt. You go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just so excited. The Avenger actually has about 35 years now of ongoing fiction. So we are a long-standing chapter with a long-standing history, both in reality and in fiction. So I started working basically last year in September on a small return story, because I'm working on the chapter's website as well. But a small return story for one of my characters. And as I sat down to start to write this little 7-page bit of, fun, the character started effectively talking to me and saying, "No, we need a little bit more than 7 pages. And a little bit more than a couple hundred words is, a little less than that's not going to do." So here we are. It's July, 90,000 words and change later. This is turning into quite the novel project. And I hope it's done by September.
I'm going to look forward to seeing that when it does come out.
Yeah, it's a coming home story, but it also resets the variables on the fictional ship, what we can do, what we can't do, and just kind of brings us, kicking and screaming into the pre-next generation timeline. So It's pretty fun.
Now, I also hear that you have an interesting analogy of what life is like aboard the Avenger. Would you care to share that?
Oh, yes, an analogy. Okay, so a lot of people ask, what the deal is, like why do I join Starfleet? Why do I join a chapter? Why do I join your chapter? Well, the reason in our case, when Sarah first came, and she's our captain, Sarah Rosenzweig, when she first came into the group, the first night she was having some issues, and a few of us jumped in to help her out. And she's like, "Why would you do this?" I'm like, "Well, we're kind of like a Klingon house in a lot of respects. You join, but there's really only one way out." And of course, the other analogy is like we're like Olive Garden, but we don't serve food, and thank God we don't.
Can you tell us about the time that made you go, "Wow, I'm glad to be a part of Starfleet"? I have that moment continually. It sounds a bit hokey, but I have that moment continually. There are days when I'm like, "Why am I?" And then there are a lot more days where I'm like, "I'm really glad to be here." When I came back to the Avenger after a long hiatus, raising my eldest, and things were going to hell in a handbasket, in my personal life, my friends from Starfleet, or the ones that, and also the ones that I met previously through Starfleet, were there for me to catch my fall. That really is the reason for me. It's the people, and it's the opportunity to just network with like-minded people that really was my wow moment, and continues to be. Wow.
I talk to people about genetics and about very different sciences all the time, and we go into excruciating detail about the actual technicalities of it, and it's food for my brain, and I love it.
Wow. Now, if a director called you to be part of the Star Trek universe, let's just put you in that situation, what role would you what role could you walk on the set with and get it right on the first take, and why?
Ooh, What role? Well, I could walk on as a bit player engineer number 4 in the back. That would work out just fine. I could, if I got a more regular role, I definitely would want to be one of the people that got all the juicy lines with technobabble. That would be me. There are a lot of actors that are not comfortable. Tig Notaro, for example, is not comfortable with all the technobabble. She just doesn't understand it. I know that there's a basis that the technobabble is based on, so I would be having everything, cake and my breakfast, just to be able to do that live on TV for people, and have people to also to see a transgender person on TV and not be called out as such, but just, oh, hey, I know that person. And you can, and then they can say, well, we've got, this person on, and, whatever. So it'd be cool.
Well, right now yeah. Right now we're starting a new segment called Captain Shoreleave Redshirt.
Okay.
So who would you want to lead you, hang out with, or throw out the nearest airlock? Now, we have 3 choices for you. The first one's Q. The second one is Captain Kirk, and the third one's Odo. So who would you want to lead you?
I'm going to go with Q, because you can go anywhere and do anything. So, and the personality I quite like.
Now, who would you want to hang out with on shore leave?
Picard.
Well, you aren't given Picard. You're given Kirk and Odo.
Let's see. Hang out with on shore leave. I'm going to have to go with Kirk on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I can safely throw Odo out an airlock without harming him.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. I want to thank you so very much for being my guest here on Starfleet at Large and sharing your experiences on the adventures in Starfleet. Mm-hmm. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, there's a lot more to be had, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you for having me.
Well, do appreciate you. Coming up next, all aboard for the next story in Region 4, courtesy of Fleet Admiral Rob Learman.
Hi, this is Rob Learman. This is a look at my model trains here. It's on a 4 by 22 foot layout in an oval shape. You can see 2 freight trains running. And I like doing just little things here, little details. I'm not great at it, but I like to have some fun. You can see some of this guy's playing basketball over here. Little picnic ground. There's even a wedding party here. Come and move down a little bit. And here we got a train coming. A little gas station. And we got the Golden Arches, the original one, with a different sign, of course. And where would you be without Starbucks? I got a little yard here. And in the background, you see the passenger terminal, a couple of trains there. Here in the foreground, we've got the Coca-Cola Dr. Pepper plant here, distributor. And then we've got back here, there's an accident, and you can see the flashing lights, police car, the tow truck, the fire truck, an ambulance. And we got a little housing development under construction. You see the signal going automatically. A little, this by the way is HO gauge, and right where you're seeing now around the lake is an N scale one. My newest addition here is a open pit coal mine. And there's corn. And some fruit trees here. Little switching area to a farm area. And there's a flying saucer in the military is kind of around it. And who did they call? Yes, in fact, that's the Ghostbusters in the ICDO one. There's also a little kids play area. And all the cars watching the movie. Oops, sorry about the figure there in the way. And of course, Star Wars. See the signals going. So a little overall look. This is in my garage. So it's about 4 by 22 feet long. There's the only mountain I've got. No raise in elevation because there's not a lot of space here. It's a single car garage. So in case anybody doesn't know, I modeled the Delaware and Hudson Railroad, which went away many years ago, but and this isn't actually the model of the real, I mean the housing and everything. It's just my own design. Just put it together on my own. You can see a turntable with a bunch of Delaware and Hudson locomotives. There's an Alaska Railroad happens to be there. There's a Saturn locomotive from Saturn Motor Company, and the steam locomotives as well. Got another older passenger car right here. So a lot of the buildings are lit. Some of them are LEDs, some of them are not. Oh yeah, you may not notice it. There's a UPS truck here making a delivery to Starbucks. And of course he's got all of his lights and emergency flashers on. Oh, what could we do without the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile? So I hope that you've enjoyed it. The railroad actually has Colony Junction, but yeah, it's mostly Delaware and Hudson here on Colony Junction. All right. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.
Hello, Starfleet. Please join Fleet Admiral Steve Parmley on this month's Commander of Starfleet's Ask Me Anything, where you can ask him or any of his guests anything. Starfleet related, that is. This is your chance to ask those riveting questions and get the answers you've always wanted. Also, if you would like to be a guest on a future broadcast, please email epdirector.ama@gmail.com and we'll get you scheduled. Hope to see you soon.
There has been plenty of time to do the SFDPP 101 and 102. Work has begun with fleet operations and the regional coordinators to determine which COs and XOs that have not taken the required exams. Starfleet is now dry docking or removing either the CO or XO who are lacking. These requirements have been set forth in the Members' Handbook and by the Office of Commander Starfleet in conjunction with the Admiralty Board of Starfleet International. Everyone with elevated access to the database, including COs and XOs, must have OTS, OCC, SFDPP 101 and 102.
Welcome back. Our next guest is a longtime Starfleet member who has served as the director of the Advanced Starship Design Bureau for as long as I can remember. He is also a longtime member of the USS Avenger. Please welcome Admiral Alex Rosenweig. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are things on that right coast?
Well, it's not as hot as it was the last few days, and I'm grateful for that.
We're going to get more heat here in the Midwest, so
It's
anyway.
coming back here, too.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Alex?
Sure. I'll actually correct one thing, though, that you said a moment ago. I'm actually the director of the Department of Technical Services. The
Okay.
Advanced Starship Design Bureau is an office within our department, and it is currently led by Scott Melrose, and I've never actually led that one.
Okay.
But I work with Scott a lot, and that's really cool.
Oh,
In
boy.
answer to your question, I'm at this point just turned 56. I have been in Starfleet since 1982, so you can think about the percentage of my life that's actually been spent in this organization. And like Lourdes, a lot of my best friends have been have come to me through Starfleet, and it's changed my life pretty much completely, up to and including, of course, meeting and finding my wife through Starfleet.
Mm-hmm. What brought you into? I mean, as a fan, what made you a fan of Star Trek?
Well, Star Trek was there for as long as I can remember. I'm the same age as the second pilot, more or less. So I remember it, and as a very small child, the first thing that caught my attention was it's a show about exploring space. And I have been fascinated with outer space since I was, about yo-high. And so that caught my attention. But as I got older, I also saw more and more layers to it, and saw the hopeful future, saw united humanity, saw a show where the heroes really were a group of professionals who had worked to get to where they were doing jobs they loved, and were saving the Earth from time to time, but just learning new things, making a difference, and learning about themselves as well.
Oh. Well, what are some of the positions you've held throughout Starfleet, chapter, regional, and on the international level?
Well, let's see. I have been an XO twice. Actually, no, I've been an XO 3 times. I've been a CO twice. I have headed what was then Starfleet shuttle operations, and was one of the driving forces between eventually changing its identity into shakedown operations. And I have been a regional coordinator twice, 10 years apart. And that was interesting, gotta tell you. You see a lot about how technology has changed our fandom world, just looking at how things were between those 2 points.
Well, whenever there's a question about design of a ship, technical specs, or anything else in engineering, you seem to be the lead person to go to. Over the years, what have you seen change in the starship designs, and what type of ships people are registering nowadays?
For a very long time, the most common chapter choices are the ships we've seen on screen. And that still is true to a great degree, although I've noticed that in the last, say, 5 to 10 years, whereas it used to be whatever the newest show was always getting the most attention and the most requests for ships or stations for chapters, has not been the case as much more recently. I haven't seen as much call for ships from, say, Discovery or Picard. And there seems to be a really strong sense, and maybe this is the sociology or the psychology of the people who are leading the groups that form chapters in Starfleet. There's still a lot of interest in original Star Trek, both the TV series and the movies. There's a lot of interest in the ships and the sort of feel of the Berman era for Star Trek too. Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, and to a lesser degree, Enterprise.
Now, the Avenger has been a parent chapter for a lot of groups. What advice can you give to those who wish to become a support chapter, and what has been some of your lessons learned, good or bad, in that endeavor?
What has always been, in my experience, one of the biggest challenges and most rewarding aspects too of shepherding new groups is make sure to capture their excitement, make sure to help develop it, help preserve it, keep them interested, keep them enthused, reinforce that excitement, help build their morale, show them how much fun it can be. One of the things, even to go back to DTS, since one of the awesome things about my job there is every new group that starts a chapter will eventually talk to me. So one of the things that I really feel a responsibility to do is to recognize, hey, these folks are excited about what they're doing. This is cool. Let's have some fun with all of this. And as a support chapter, Avengers had to do the same thing. We've had groups for many years, and at this point, I think we've had more than a dozen daughter chapters, and even more grandchildren, quote unquote. And it still comes back to the same thing: recognize the excitement, help support them, and be able to answer the questions, share experiences, help them to know what pitfalls to look for. And sometimes there are going to be things that are frustrating, and you want to be there to be able to sort of hold their hand, tap them on the shoulder, give them a hug sometimes, and say, buck up, it's going to be okay.
What is the most meaningful Starfleet event that you participated in?
Oh, wow. Meaningful. There are so many. I don't know that I can pinpoint a single one, because I've had just, they talk about, just in general, we talk about the fact that life is filled with moments, and sometimes it's those moments that make a difference and can change almost anything. And I think that's true. There are just always, whether it be going to shore leave on a regular basis. Until the pandemic, I had not missed a shore leave since 1988. Certainly, in the sense of personal meaning, getting married at shore leave a few years ago, and being surrounded by so many of my friends, most of whom either were or had been in Starfleet, really made a profound difference for myself and for Sarah. It really brought home that whole sense of family that this organization really has, a sense of community. And if the family's a little dysfunctional from time to time, that happens. But it comes back, it endures, and I think that's important.
Outside of the fleet, what do you do? I mean, what do you do for fun outside the fleet, though?
Actually, I do a lot of similar things, whether they're in fleet or outside of the fleet. I love to read. I love to write. I'm an editor by trade, and I love to do it just for fun as well. And I love science. I love exploration. I love learning new things. And I've even somewhat played on the fringes of politics, and I won't get too much into that, except for the fact that I got into that because as a little kid, I was like, wow, space program, cool. And then I realized, oh, okay, we have the space program because people in Washington give it money. And how does that work? And it makes me think about how groups of people work together. I mean, people talk about politics in organizations, and as if politics itself is a dirty word, and it's not. Politics is a process by which groups of people make decisions. And learning about it in the real world helps to see how it works in clubs, and sometimes vice versa. And maybe some of the things that we've learned in the clubs could be brought out into the real world and used as object lessons too.
Well, what are your opinions on what some people are calling New Trek?
New Trek as of what part?
Well, the most recent part, I would think.
Okay.
Discovery, Picard,
in general, am really enjoying them. I think
Ah,
there's a lot of strong writing. I think they've certainly brought their A game this time in terms of what they're putting on the screen. I mean, just they're putting such a rich visual experience. And yeah, I may not agree with every single creative choice they make, but you know, if I were doing it, there would be people disagreeing with mine. So there we go.
do you have a favorite engineer, by the way? We should ask it like that at least.
I still think Scotty is.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of strong engineer characters. I mean, I think we've really been blessed with some really interesting personalities to, inhabit the engine rooms of our various starships.
That's true enough. Now, do you have a favorite series?
Still the original.
Oh, yeah.
At least of the ones that have been televised. If you count non-filmed series, probably Vanguard.
Mm-hmm. Now, we have a new segment here on the interview segment with Starfleet at Large. It's called Captain Shorefleet Red Shirt. Now, we're going to give you 3 characters from the Star Trek universe. So, who would you want to lead you, hang out with you, or throw out the nearest airlock? Now, the 3 choices are Gowron, McCoy, and Troy. Now, who would you like to have lead you?
Probably McCoy.
Mm-hmm. Any particular reason?
Because, and this is one of those things that we don't really talk a lot about that character. He is a leader in his way.
Mm-hmm.
Empathetic, he's compassionate, and we see him playing that kind of role, a nurturing role often. But he's the leader of a division on a starship. He has to manage a lot of really intense situations, and that takes a lot of focus and awareness of a lot of detail and organization that a good leader has to have.
Okay. That's the first of your choices. Now, who would you love to hang out with or like to hang out with? Gowron or Troy?
Well, there's positives and negatives to both, but I think I'll go with Troy.
Okay. So you throw Gowron off the airlock.
Yeah. Perspective a little bit too much toward the end there.
Right. Alec, I want to thank you for sharing your unique experiences in Starfleet. Straighten me out about the DTS and the Advanced Starship Design Bureau and Star Trek fandom in general. I mean, you've been here around you've been here as long as I've been a member. You've been here longer. You're an admiral.
1982 is when I joined.
Yeah. And for being my guest here on Starfleet at Large. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Here are some conventions coming up around the world. Be sure to be on the lookout for your fellow Starfleet members at any one of them. Well, this wraps up another edition of Starfleet at Large. I want to thank you for watching us, and please spread the word. As a little tidbit of our August show, we will be covering the Fleet Admiral's Barbecue in Paducah, and then the virtual IC. But if you would like to be on the show or know someone who should, email us at starfleetatlarge@gmail.com. For the staff of Starfleet at Large, I'm Jeff Higdon. Looking forward to seeing you all again, and may the winds be at your back.